Hi, everybody, and welcome to our complimentary webinar brought to you today in partnership with Dialpad, Auscontact's national gold sponsor. Today's session is entitled AI-Powered Communication Experiences, the Future of Customer Communication. And I know this is something that, we're hearing a lot about, and there's a lot of curiosity across the market. Really great opportunity today to hear from our expert and ask those questions that have been burning. So in the spirit of reconciliation, Auscontact acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, waters and community. We pay our respect to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all First Nations people joining us here today. Today's webinar will run for approximately 60 minutes, and during that time, with the help of today's very special guest, Jayden Zulu, we hope to spark your interest and engage you in the conversation, as well as, give you some ideas that you can take back to your respective businesses. To round off the session, as always, we will have the opportunity for Q&A, but if you've got some burning questions as we're going through and they're relevant to the screens that we're on and the conversation that Jayden's having, we will step in and ask them. So if you're anything like me, I'll think of a great question. If I don't write it down, I'll forget it. So just make sure you add it to the Q&A or to the chat feature as we're going. And then if we have time at the end to get to any, we will. But if there's any missed, as always, we will make sure they're answered offline and sent out when we send all of the details post-session. So I'm Fran Southwood, CEO of Auscontact and your moderator for today. Remember, as I said, to interact with us. The more interaction, we want to maximise the benefits that you take away as well. To interact, as I said, use the Q&A button or the chat feature and make any comments for Jayden or myself as you go through it, and we'll make sure we address those as we go through. If you're listening through headphones or speakers and have any issues, use that magic raise hand button and someone from the team will jump in and try and help. Alternatively, you can revert to the registration email that you would have had, and it's got all of the relevant phone numbers across and the access codes that you'll need to jump back on. So I'm going to stop talking because we all know the more important person you're here to hear from today. I'm going to introduce Jayden. Jayden Zulu is the Manager, Sales Engineering APAC at Dialpad. Jayden, I'm going to hand over to you now.
Thank you so much, Fran, and lovely to see such a big turnout here. So with regards to contact centers, which is what the topic is today, if you did want to interact and talk more on sort of the topic of AI, which does come up, you can sort of ask both questions and I will be able to answer both because I'm trained and qualified to talk around both of those topics. So we are going to sort of straddle both contact center and AI, but don't be afraid to ask any questions you have around those two topics because they can be quite complex for a business who possibly already has a contact center or has found that their business has expanded and they need one. And then obviously AI being everywhere and sort of, is it good for my company? What's it used for? Hopefully we can cover that off in the content, but if not, just ask your question. So Fran, do you want me to get started?
Absolutely. Let's kick off.
All right, let's kick off so we can hear the bell whistle. And here we go. Here's the agenda, what we're going to cover through. If I am speaking too fast, then basically just ping it through and then Fran will just give me like a hand signal to say slow down. Essentially what we're going to cover here is, as I mentioned before, mainly focused around contact center as a service or CCaaS in Australia. And what I've been seeing personally over my 4 years here at Dialpad and also over my 10 years in doing telephony, and then also what we've seen internationally as well. Generally, we find that in Australia and New Zealand, it's normally a year or two behind what they're doing in the US and Europe, which is good because then if they make a mistake, we can see them stumble and not step on that particular step. Then we also have as well a little bit of a case study sort of wrap up, but when it comes to all of our case studies, the devil's in the details. So always as well, you can jump on our website, get some more information or speak to one of our reps about more of those targeted sort of case studies and their use cases and how they benefited from using Dialpad. So let's kick off with some statistics. If you see here, the APAC contact center as a service market is due to expand another 12% year on year. Now, from what I've seen of this, the reason being is that a lot of businesses, especially ones that have sort of a satellite makeup, where they're using telephony answered by a particular store or a particular state, what they found after the pandemic is that they needed to centralize everything because there was an influx of business that came post-pandemic when the doors were opened back up and people could come through, or they'd lost some of their veteran staff as well. Some people took it as a time to retire. So then all of a sudden they had a bit of a brain drain as well. So this expansion, where it's apparently supposed to reach 771 million as a total compound growth in terms of the value generated from these contact centers, is because what you're seeing is that you funnel all of your normal inquiries that come through the website or through your general stores into a single specialized team. There's a lot of efficiency in doing that, which we'll cover off, but also as well, it gives you an ability to start to apply templates to how you want these people engaged. One of the hardest things when you have different sort of lines and different routes, and you lose control of the messaging, you lose control of the brand. So a centralized contact center model has been quite successful for these companies because they can control that framework as well. The other thing is around the trends that are now being applied. So technology, as you know, moves very quick. The software vendors can move in and out of the number one spot. They can be the best one day, and then next thing you know, they have a patch that rolls out and things are never the same again. So that could be said about some of the video platforms or voice platforms you may be using now. And the things that come up around AI and what can be applied to your contact center or your cloud telephony system are words like generative AI, AI automations, AI insights, and then AI co-pilots. So we're going to expand on this later, but I just want to get you sort of familiar with those icons because I asked marketing specifically for them and I thought they're pretty cool. No, I'm just joking, but they are really good topics. We're about to go into them. And just there as well, everyone here should hopefully be at a point with their staff's home internet and their business internet that they're able to do things like video meetings, voice calls, screen presentations, and run a CCaaS platform nice and smooth because they have fast internet now, okay? So that's what sort of unlocked this next level evolution with AI is the ability with fast speed. So when we see all those icons that I had before, when we talk about CCaaS, when we talk about telephony, when we talk about phone systems, video, normally people will have it all as separate apps. So when we talk about this contact center platform called Dialpad, is it a separate app? Well, for most brands, possibly yes. And you will probably be getting that tab switching fatigue. But for Dialpad, we have it all in one. So you can see there on the right-hand side, that's the majority of what we've got there, but we do have a couple of other things that can plug in, and I've got the full list there. So you could do your business voice, your business SMS, your business video, your business screen sharing, your business social chat, your business web chat, your business AI chatbot, the integration to your CRM, your business intelligence bulk data, your AI coaching tools, plus you can have it all comply with PII redaction, as well as retention policies and recordings. And you can use that globally and consistently, all with one platform. And that's the TrueClass platform called Dialpad. So another statistic here, which is that by 2025, 80% of customer service and support organizations will be applying the generative AI technology to improve their agent productivity. So in a nutshell, what this basically is saying is that ChatGPT, the way that that was released out and people sort of grabbed it by the horns and started using it to say, hey, ChatGPT, what's this upcoming Auscontact webinar about? And then GPT will go find that information, give you the information. But obviously, realistically, people probably use it and say, hey, ChatGPT, can you please write a summary report that's due in 3 hours for my boss? So that type of sort of action with ChatGPT, that's called generative AI. And the tools that are available now will advertise that they can do it, but we'll talk a little bit more about why Dialpad's GPT engine or generative AI engine is a little bit different to the ChatGPT one. So CCaaS tools for a competitive edge. I like that statement. I wrote that statement. So let's have a look here. More apps, less efficiency. Longer training times when you have more apps. Remember, we were talking before about a single all-in-one pane of glass, TrueCAS. So longer training times if you have to train them on your telephony system, train them on your CCaaS system, train them on your coaching system, and then train them on your video system. Plus, you need to update more guides as a result, more screenshots that become out of date. People go, well, the button's not there anymore. I don't know how do I do this? So then you have multiple tech support emails and numbers and contract costs. So having all those separate apps will mean that it's always, oh, he said, she said, they said, we said everyone's sort of pointing the finger and just wanting to keep you on the phone to extend those support dollars. Less task cross-skilling between agents. So if someone is really good at using your sort of video platform to do the screen share and the troubleshooting on the computer because they've mastered the way that they can connect to someone on their mobile, they know the best way to do the support. Maybe someone in your sales team is really good at using the SMS function or the omni-channel chatbot to be able to generate their business. It means you end up with these people who are specialized mainly because they just have the patience to deal with the tech. So if you have a single platform where everything look and feels the same, you don't end up with those sort of niche heroes. Not that they're a bad thing, but you sort of want everyone to be a niche hero in your company. It's the best value for salary buck. And then last one there, lower chance for first call resolution. This is the most important one. So the first call resolution is when you've just been through induction or base camp, whatever you want to call it, and you actually do your first bicycle ride without your training wheels on. In your, whether it's your sales team, your support team, whatever team you've got running with your sort of main customer contact interface, your contact center software. And if something goes wrong, if they can't actually get to the answer that they need and it goes bad, they had a bad day, they had a bad call, and they can be really slippery from there. If they're on probation, they might go home and go, you know what, I don't know if this is the place for me. So you've got to set them up to succeed. Think about if you've got a child, or if you remember back when you were a child, you learned to ride a bicycle. That first time you had your training wheels taken off, and you sort of look behind, and they said, you're going to fall, but if you fall, I'll be there to pick you up. Well, what if you just didn't fall at all? What if you always had that support all the way? Then you wouldn't have to worry about that sort of gash in your knee anymore. And that's what we aim to do with our AI Copilot tools. So coming back to those icons, those really good looking icons I mentioned before, this is here an expansion of what they can do in terms of helping your business. So that generative AI can do summaries. They can summarize all the information in a matter of seconds. So when we gave the example before, hey, ChatGPT, can you please prepare this report for my boss that's due in about 3 hours? That's what Gen AI can do with your information. So your voice calls or your video calls or your omni-channel, it can summarize it all for you. So if it's a 40-minute sales call, it can get to the crux of it for you so you don't have to listen to all 40 minutes. Automations. So if you have some tasks that are repetitive, let's say someone calls up and they want to hear how much is in their bank account, or they want to call up and say, is my courier arrived yet? Or maybe someone calls up and goes, I just want to know the price of if I buy 10 cakes. So all of those simple things that you would trust a machine to do, that there really is no there is no gray area or wiggle room about it. It's a simple black and white answer. You can now give that to an AI machine to do for you to free up the humans to do the more complex gray area, things that need some wiggle room or some finesse. I could use a couple more keywords, but I can see everyone rolling their eyes there. So what about around insights? One of the things is that normally the piece of point software, it's really good at sort of saying, this is what it's doing here. But what you need to do is you need to start crunching big data numbers, and you need to look for trends over the entire journey. One of the things our customers always ask for is they say, we want to know when someone lands on the website, talks to us on the chat, picks up the chat later on WhatsApp, our rep gives them a call, they don't answer, the person calls back, they speak, they book a meeting for 3 days later on a video call, and then after that, there's about 6 months later when they resume it and pick it up from there. Then they send an SMS as well, just to say thank you. All of those different parts of those contact points, you need to roll them all up into sort of that big data crunch number. And that's easier to do with an all-in-one app, but it is also possible with AI to do that from multiple smaller apps. But you have to have sort of the framework there to sit and really think, how is everyone contacting us? What are all those systems? So mapping it all out to be able to do big data journeys. And then finally there, that Copilot. So we mentioned before about the training wheels and the bicycle. That's what Copilot is. Imagine if you just knew that there was always going to be invisible or maybe computerized training wheels there on the bicycle with you. That's what Copilot does. It's a piece of software there that can pull into your knowledge base. You can program it to have those little bits of advice, or again, it can start to learn what is good and bad sentiment on a call. And it can also then give its own opinion through a scorecard or a rating system, whether something's going well or something's going not so well, so that you know where to focus your energy as a human. So think of it as the guide dog in front that's sniffing around to say, this is the path that we must take. Now, let's translate that into the product itself, because I've always got to talk about the product. That's my job. It's actually in my job description. So what about Dialpad's AI? So where do we do GPT? We do GPT in you finish a video meeting, or you finish a voice meeting, or you finish an omni-channel interaction, and our GPT, which is our own GPT, so not one that we do a third-party plugin into, which means that you have to worry about where is my customer's data going. It's ours. So because it's ours and it's been around since 2018, it's been trained on close to 7 billion minutes of interactions, and they're business interactions. So because they're business interactions, then it's not going to get confused with, let's say, something to do with a university paper, or it's not going to get confused with something to do with, say, Elvis, or it's not going to get confused with something that may be necessarily on the news. It's business trained. It knows business terminology. So it knows medical terminology, it knows business terminology, it knows marketing terminology, and then also from there as well, it knows the voice of the customer and what the customers tend to say. So when they say things like refund or rebate, or how that actually translates and what that means in a business context. Because it's not just about the speech to text. When you're summarizing something, you have to understand, what was this in regards to? Was it a fight or flight, or was it a catch or flight? So although those are very different statements, but both involve the word flight. And our AI will know the difference, therefore the summaries will be more accurate. Then we've got those automation flows. So we mentioned before about someone calling in and just wanting to know where their package is. Well, if your courier system has that there, why not just get the machine to read that back over the phone instead of having someone take up 5 to 10 minutes to answer that? And that could be applied across any type of menial function that you have within your company. So we have that through what we call IVR workflows, where we can use your telephone system or your chatbot to be able to handle those inquiries. Now over here, we've got our big data. I think you've already pieced it together here about what we can do around that customer journey. I gave the example before about tracking someone across voice, SMS, video, and then you've also got them there for someone following up maybe on email later. So we can tie everything together and you can start to see the customer's journey. But further to that, because we have those summaries, and because we also have the ability to tag certain phrases, such as your competitor, or maybe when you use the discount code, then you can actually apply even more sort of detail into what you want to analyze here. And then you can start to see the trends in when people are asking for a discount, which product is more popular based on color, how quickly people get angry on a call when your particular people read out one of the terms and conditions. Could be a whole range of different reasons there. But the more ability you've got to add more data to the pile, as long as the system can handle it, then you can start to infer more and design your own framework for research. And then finally, you can coach live as opposed to after. Most people will do their quality assurance or their quality control checks after. They'll take a sample of an interaction. They'll go through with a scorecard that maybe they've made in Excel, and then they'll score it. One of the great things about Dialpad is you can do all of that post sort of QC, QA, but you can also do that stuff live. So what our AI will do is it will detect the calls as they're happening to say this one needs help. And it does that through sentiment analysis, through keyword pinging, or alternatively, you can just have it set to flag when calls are going for a particular time. So that's what we have there around that live coaching as well. And as a co-pilot, that's much more effective than having to do a post, because we talked before about that first call resolution. So when someone fails the first time, that's going to carry with them for a couple of days afterwards. So what if they just never failed at all through live co-piloting? And some testimonials from our customers. Now, this is a pretty short list. There is actually a very long list, and a lot of the customers I know personally have had to roll them out off their old system to their new one. So we'll start off first with Randstad. So Randstad originally started on our UCaaS, which was just to replace their PABX system. And what happened from there is, as recruiters, they wanted more. They're high performance. They do a lot of their work on the phone. There's a lot of things about GDPR, and it's a global company. So they needed a system that was going to do outbound CCaaS, or outbound high intensity volume, with smarts around it. And they're able to achieve that with Dialpad. And they're basically, their reps are saving around 5 hours a week. Now, this is to do with having access to the information through recaps at their fingertips, using the callback automation flows to basically say, if you're following up on the status of one of your applications, press 1. And then it goes and does a data dip instead of someone sort of digging through. finally, as well, what you've got there is that integration into their CRMs means that when their reps are leaving and the new reps come on, it's basically like stepping out of a size 9 shoe, and then your new person who comes in also happens to be a size 9. Everything just fits, it's nice and snug because they're not having to basically rebuild everything from scratch. And then also as well, this gave them the ability to be completely mobile, not only from whether they're in the office, at home, but also out on the road as well. Because with Dialpad, it works across all devices, up to 10 per user, it's all included. And then that also works on a global level as well. So over here, SiteMinder, this is one of our biggest, most complex customers that we have. They do software development for hotels. And one of the benefits for them in moving off their old CCaaS platform over to Dialpad was that AI side. So they've done a lot of stuff around their intelligence data gathering, and to the point where actually they're sort of rethinking whether telephony is the best way to interact with their customers. They found, because they're calling hotels, a lot of their customers say, look, you're going to have to wait. I'm just going to put you on hold. Because they're a hotel, they're actually used to putting people on hold. So their own sales reps were getting put on hold by the customers. So they wanted to explore, well, maybe we can use WhatsApp to communicate with these people. Maybe we should be using sort of Instagram, because a lot of hotels are doing a lot of advertising through Instagram. So with Dialpad, you have that ability to roll everything up, but they're only able to work out that those trends were there because of the AI data and because of the way that they had that truly mobile system that worked again across all of their countries. So the data trends that they were seeing around their outbound high volume CCaaS calling was actually based on global analytics, not just Australia as well. So there's a lot of data that had to be crunched, and Dialpad could do it for them. And finally, here's Xero. So Xero is a very long-standing customer. Again, similar to Randstad, wanted to replace their on-premise system and then started to move to a model of, well, let's start handling inbound inquiries through centralized contact centers, and our outbound sales through those high-volume AI-enabled teams as well. Again, with Xero, for them, call quality was very, very important. Xero was it still is a very premium brand, so they wanted to make sure when people called through, it always sounded like it was clear, strong connection. Their PABX system, it was costing them a lot to keep it at that standard, so they were able to save money when they moved over to Dialpad and actually increase the call quality standard as well. So we've got here the Q&A. I think I'm running okay on time. Was there any questions that had come through there?
No, no questions yet, but it might be worth us hearing a little bit about, earlier in the slide you talked about, some of those specific functions, the recaps with the action items and stuff like that. I'd love us to explore some of that a little bit, and maybe talk a little bit about how your different customers have kind of, number one, from an organizational perspective, obviously there's some financial gains, there's some real wins around things like your quality and, different type of workload specifically. I think you call out complaints in there. But
That's right.
from a people perspective as well, obviously this is a massive change program for people. But again, there's some real wins, right? You talked about onboarding and speed to competency and things like that, and taking away some of those menial, and by menial, we just mean time-consuming and administrative kind of tasks that actually free up your people to be more focused on the interactions themselves, and really actually nurturing, I guess, those relationships with customers. So can you tell us what any of, and I know you just touched on 3 case studies there, Jaden, and I know you've got plenty more, but can you tell us how any of your customers have kind of, what's been that experience as far as the people lens as they've kind of transitioned through this? I know we hear some organizations get a bit of pushback, etc., but it's almost once they're over that hump of change that then their employees, their people are actually embracing, I guess, the change that this affords them.
Of course, and it really is. It's hard in my position to basically try to tell a customer or a client, I like to say client, not customer, but essentially to say to them, like, you make the move, you won't look back, because in a business, change is costly. So, and oftentimes, unfortunately, sometimes that change always ends up going not how the sales rep had described it, which means that you make a change on something big. So something that would be, say, consolidating three different bits of software into one, like what our product does. And then also as well from there, start to tell the staff, hey, you're going to have a piece of machinery and AI that's going to shadow what you're doing as well. It's just always fraught with not from management level, but from the frontline level, people basically saying like, this is a bad idea. This is going to cost the money company. It's not going to work. So what we do to alleviate that is we have the trial. So we have 14 days that people can test it. And we do what's called a managed proof of concept, where often we'll go down to site and we just sit with the end user staff, give them the product, and then ask them and say, what don't you like about this? What do you like about this? And over the years that I've been here, we've done so many of those that Australia has actually influenced, and New Zealand have influenced the product quite a lot. Those customers that we raised before, so SiteMinder, Xero, and Randstad, all of them have directly asked for features and capabilities within Dialpad, and they've been delivered within about 6 months after the request as well. So an example would be SiteMinder. They said one of the reasons they discovered that people liked the old system is that there was no way to force disposition and wrap up notes. So what was happening was that people were basically doing their calls and then just putting whatever sort of default, disposition was at the easiest at the top of the list. So they wrap up code. Then once they got Dialpad, all those sort of loose ends started to become exposed. And then Dialpad was able to sort of go, hey, your people are not putting in dispositions, or hey, they're putting in this disposition, but the AI summary is not matching what that disposition is saying. So someone's lying. So of course, they're going to assume the computer's lying. Nope, turns out it was the staff that was lying. And then finally, as well, from the omni-channel perspective, they said, oh, people are using their personal WhatsApp. They said that's just how they do business there. Okay, well, then tell them to just bring it into Dialpad. What's the problem? Same with SMS. We get the same thing. They say, oh, the sales rep says they need to SMS the customer. Okay, just bring it into Dialpad. So it's always this struggle between management knowing and seeing and testing that it's going to be good, and the staff wanting to do what staff do and just, maybe sometimes get away with a couple of gray areas here and there, but it's business. So I've been with Dialpad, I've been using Dialpad for 5 years. Here at Dialpad, we have all of our stuff recorded. We have everything all logged, everything's GPT summarized. There should be nothing to worry about if you're not doing anything wrong. That's what I always say to these businesses. And the people who are doing something wrong, well, you'll catch them. And you talk about a project like this slowing your business down and being costly. Well, if you're all of a sudden monitoring to this level, and it's not monitoring like a big brother monitoring, it's for everyone's benefit. Because when we do the trial, we explain to the reps, hey, guess what? Maybe you don't need to do a disposition anymore. It's going to summarize it for you. Hey, every time that customer calls you to ask what's the status of their current refund, well, the machine's going to do that for you. Hey, you know how you tried to memorize all of the pricing book and you always get it wrong and you always end up underquoting it? Guess what? Now an AI copilot's going to serve that up for you. There's benefits for both. And it's the same as when we use our phones and we have to sort of sign up for cookies or we have to give our mobile number. It's a give and take. So the business can monitor when people are maybe doing something not that good, but then the staff, especially the ones who are good at their job and like their job, they're going to get all these extra tools that make their life easier. And I think when you sit and explain these out with the businesses, it's not just a case of where, okay, if we plug this in, we'll get X and Y. Hopefully it doesn't go wrong. It actually becomes more of a business process discussion, which is exactly what these types of big tech changes should be. If you do point replacement of software, you're going to get that. You're just going to get band-aids all over the ship. But if you actually sit and map out what you want, a product like Dialpad, and that's what those case studies did, is really good for them. But you have to change your whole business process over time to be able to accommodate all this extra data and information you're going to get. Did that answer your question, Fran?
Yeah, no, it did. Where you talked about the live coaching. I'd love us to explore this one a little bit more. Obviously, we've had lots of organisations stepping into that, 100%, whether you call it QA or monitoring or whatever it is. But then it's about how do you use that? What are the smart ways you can then actually expand different things and different practices within your business because you've suddenly got access and availability. You talked about the codes. I don't know any organisation I've worked with that, whether you call them the classification codes or the outcome codes, whatever it is,
Wrap up.
it's probably one of the biggest bugbears in every single organisation I speak to. So it's interesting we call that one out. But live coaching, right? So, how's that work? I get that we're saying, so that's that AI generated coaching. So obviously it's a different type of coaching to what contextually organizations would actually be carrying out now. It doesn't mean there's no place for human coaching and, opportunities beyond the interaction itself. But can you give us a little bit more information around how that live coaching works?
Of course. So normally I just demo it, right? It's just easier just to demo it. But the thing is that, this is supposed to be a discussion here, and I always invite everyone, if you want to see a demo, just pick up the phone or shoot us an email. We'll do a demo like on a dime, right? So, but the way it works is, should I demo? Hang on, my marketing person is just commenting, he's like, do you want a demo? And I'm like, maybe I want a demo. So what I might do is let's invite people to contact us for a demo. But essentially, I'll explain to you how it works. Everyone use your imaginations at this point. And essentially what we're looking at here is that you're at home. It's Friday. You work from home on Fridays, and you have a staff member in Sydney, a staff member in Melbourne, a staff member in Auckland. Okay. So how do you know what they're doing? Well, on Microsoft Teams, you might have a look to see whether they've got the little yellow there, which says that they're busy. You might want to see if they've got the little red dot, which shows that they're in a meeting. What's the meeting about? So how long have they been on there for? I have to check their calendar. Okay. So all of this stuff is all stuff that you could do live, really. If you want to listen in and you're using a piece of CCaaS software, yes, you may be able to either jack, so you might be able to use a Y jack and sit next to someone and listen in, or you might ask them to send you the meeting invite for the video, and then you have to join with your camera off and on mute. Maybe you might do it that way. Or alternatively, you might have a piece of software that does allow you to listen in, but that's all you could do. You could just listen in to the call. You can't really see much else after that. And normally you have to pre-plan that, or you have to basically know from the list there, the one that you want to go and look at. With Dialpad, the way it works is that the video, the omni-channel, and the voice, it's always being recorded. It's always got the ability to listen in. And what the AI will do is it will look for the sentiment, look for the call purpose, and you can tell it for particular words and phrases that are of interest to you. So I'll give an example. In our organization, for our sales team, we've got people in Brisbane, people in Melbourne, people in Sydney, people in Auckland, different time zones. Now, what happens is I wake up in the morning. I don't usually go to the office because of what I've got to do. It can be a bit noisy in the office, which is what we want. We want a nice, lively office. So I work from home. So how do I manage all those people remotely? Well, Dialpad will show me all the current interactions. So I'm going to say interactions now because we got 3 channels. But all those interactions, I'll list them all. And then it will ping me. So it'll tell me the one that's going to have one of those warnings on there. So one of the ones that I actually monitor for is personal number, or call my personal mobile. If any of our reps are saying that, then I know something really weird is going on. So if I wake up and there's a call going on and that gets said, I can immediately click in and I can first read how we got to this point. So that's really important. Otherwise, you get false positives. So because Dialpad has an 85% to 95% accurate speech to text, that means that when you get your live ping, you can read the previous parts of what went on up until that point. So if I read through and then I can see there that they said, maybe you're making calls from your personal mobile. Oh, okay, it was a false alarm. But maybe I read the previous one and they're like, if you don't like this price, maybe you should call me on my personal mobile. Okay, I need to start listening in on this call. Something's going on here. I can see here from here. And then what you can do is after reading the prior context, you can join the call live, start to listen. Then you can barge in on the call as well, or barge in on the chat, or barge in on the video meeting as well. And then you can take it over from there. So that's how live coaching from a management perspective is very helpful. But from an AI perspective, the rep as they work, you can have the AI listen into the calls and it will surface you pop-up cards. So pop-ups on your screen, which will tell you exactly what you want it to tell you. So whether it tells you that price book, whether it tells you what the terms and conditions are of the current discount code, whether it tells you there's shipping delays because of a typhoon, you can program those in, you can have the AI listen, and then as a rep on the phone, They'll flash before you. You can ignore it if you already know the information, or you can divert your eyes to where you have it set because you can customize the size and you go, oh, that's really useful. And that's used in our company the most for our international calling rates because no one can remember all of the individual country codes and how much it costs. So what we do is we have them programmed in. And let's say Fran says, yes, I'm setting up a new office in, let's say, United Arab Emirates. What's going to be my calling rate for that? So for the calling rate for that, instead of someone going, I'll have to get back to you, or them saying and as they look it up on the website, the AI would just serve them that price, which is really smooth for our clients' customers to be able to have that smooth flowing conversation with the customer and have everything answered for them on the spot, live.
Really interesting. I'm just looking. I don't know that we've got any questions from anyone. Did anyone have any questions they wanted to throw into the mix before we wrap up for today? I know there's been loads of information, and Jaden, I know that you've offered anyone can reach out if they wanted to get a demo or hear more about it. Particularly, I think you're right. Sometimes actually seeing those demos give you a different perspective as to how it can apply in the environment. But do we have any questions from anybody before we wrap up today? Are there any last things you want to leave the audience with, Jaden, in relation to, and it might be some of those pitfalls that you've seen along the way, or some of the potential, barriers that are impacting people's appetite?
Well, Fran, as I said to you last week when we were at the other event, and I said you're very good at curating this. You actually already curated out of me some really good examples we saw about what's it like trying to implement this type of product in a place. Where do you get sort of held up? You said, what's it really look like realistically to use AI in a product? So you already guided me around some really good things. So I want to see this recording afterwards. But I guess the final thing I want people to be left with is if you are going to use AI in your company, have a think about the way it's going to be done and test. So always test it. So one of my favorite things to do is you basically you get a call script of something like a common transaction within your company, right? So whether it's an outbound sales call or an inbound support call. And then when you're testing your systems for AI, read the same script with the same two voice actors, right? So whether that's you and the operations manager, and then essentially what you do is you read the same script into all the systems, and then you see which AI is actually more useful or more accurate. It's such a simple thing to do. Just have a set script, the same two people from your business reading it out. And then when you're doing your testing of your systems, compare the pair, as they say, for superannuation. So compare the pair. And it's a lot of people don't think to do such simple tests. That's what I found during a lot of my time.
No, that's really good advice. And I know, we are seeing a lot in the market. And if you had to call one thing out that says, and I know this will be hard, but a question here that says, how is Dialpad different from other solutions? What's your point of difference?
So the point of difference is the true CaaS or a single stack that does everything in one is because ours is actually, it's not through a third party. It's not one that we've done like a really cumbersome acquisition and it sort of sits as something separate. That's an example for one of the CRMs. I won't say who the CRM is, but one of the CRMs says that they can do everything, but they actually, through their acquisitions, just sort of jammed in whatever the tech is. We've done some acquisitions, but we only got it for the actual logic IP of the code, and then we rewrote what that could do native into our system. So you don't have to go to a separate portal that doesn't have different fonts. It actually starts to integrate really, really nicely. We've only made 2 or 3 acquisitions, but it's always assimilated as opposed to sort of merged, right? And that is a really big advantage. A lot of people talk about that's what they like about us, because if they use one of the other competitor products, they said, oh, we've got to go to a separate portal for that, or oh, it doesn't work in the same way for that, or it's a separate analytics, whereas ours is all streamlined in that way. And like I said, even though we've done some of those product expansions through acquisition of a smaller company, our mandate from our developer team is to always rewrite the code so that it's native within the platform. Yeah, that's one of our advantages.
So it's not a translated application. Everything is on the same language. the same
That's right.
basis, uses the same thinking. So therefore, there's no requirement for your customers to actually know multiple different, even terminology, right? When you look at some
Correct.
of the different applications. I know you touched on that earlier about, that real opportunity to sit with a business and understand, because again, I would say as a practitioner, the number of organizations or vendors you speak to, that conversation with a salesperson, how that transitions when it's at implementation stage can often be a little bit out of whack. So I love that you guys are actually making sure the language used, the conversations had, are all understood the same way and actually pitched the same way. So yeah, very good. Okay, well, thank you, Jaden, for today. Thank you, everybody, for coming along. If you've got any other questions, reach out to Jaden. You can reach out to us and we can put you in touch if need be. But, Jaden's on LinkedIn. I'm sure they can jump in and connect with you there. The session, as we always do, it's recorded, so we'll send that out with any other information from Dialpad, including contact details, so you can reach out, particularly if you want any of those demos on those applications. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll talk again soon. Thanks
Thanks,
all. Thanks,
everyone.
Jaden.
Bye.